So first off, I know this is April, but I'm just now finally getting to it. And I've had the list for a while, but I wanted to make sure of what my favorite movies were. And then since I don't have a lot of viewers, so I don't have to worry too much about getting ahead of anyone else, I thought I'd watch every movie multiple times and really kind of cement my favorite movies of 2017. And this is the result. My name is Brandon Zarzyczny, but you can call me Big Z. And today I'm talking about my 20 favorite movies of 2017. And again, this is my favorite. It doesn't necessarily mean the best, because I've watched my reviews. I do like a lot of superhero movies. So the top of the list may have a lot of them, but that's what I love. And so just keep that in mind. But thanks for watching. So I have all the movies here in this bag. So let's see what number 20 is. The Disaster Artist. The Disaster Artist was one of the funniest films I saw in 2017. And it's really about the making of the worst movie ever, called The Room. And it was directed and stars James Franco, and also has his brother Dave Franco and Seth Rogen and a bunch of other funny people playing the roles of the characters, the actors in the original movie. And this one was, again, I really loved it. And I love that it wasn't just comedy. There was a lot of drama too. And it's kind of like a story of an underdog, really kind of hitting it big, even though maybe not the way he expected to. But, when I watched it over, and it didn't quite hold up. I think sometimes, when you have a lot of comedy, it can do that. But also, it didn't help that there's been some controversy with James Franco. And, it's bad when instead of having him go out for the Blu-ray release and, do press and stuff, you have the guy that they made the original movie out doing press. Tommy Wiseau did a lot of funny stuff for the Blu-ray release, but at the same time, it's kind of weird where James Franco has completely disappeared, and then you have Wiseau doing the press for the release of the Blu-ray. And it doesn't really hold back the movie. Like, you can look past that and just enjoy the movie. But definitely, that's why it's in my top 20. But that's why it's at number 20. Is that it doesn't quite hold up as much. At number 19 is Split. So Split came out probably now over a year ago, and it seemed like it was going to be like kind of like a horror flick where this guy has like multiple personalities, but he becomes a monster. But then they do some twist towards the end, which brings it into some other movies, and I just love that. And it's really M. Night Shyamalan's second good movie in a row, and I hope that he can do a third good movie in a row with the Glass, I think it's going to be called, and we'll see. But I enjoyed Split a lot, but I think it's just that when you watch it over and over again, it doesn't hold as much there, but you kind of know some of the twists that are going to happen. But I still think, James McAvoy is really good as this character with all these different personalities. And I loved all the different, the camera work that Shyamalan does and the directing. And you still have a couple of goofy things that Shyamalan is known for, including a bad appearance by himself as an actor. But I really liked Anya Taylor-Joy as well in this. And it's a really entertaining movie that, I could easily have put higher in my list, but I think just fell back a little bit for various reasons. But I would recommend, and it was definitely one of my favorites of the year. At number 18 is It. So It was my favorite horror movie of 2017, and it has a lot to offer. But I think that the first watch was the best watch in the movie theater, and you don't know what's going to happen. That I just absolutely loved it. But when I watched it over a couple times, like, you notice some of the format of the film and how like all the scares work that lessen them a little. Like, I still really enjoy it at all, and I loved the Bill Skarsgård as the It, and I love all the different kids. And the acting was great, and directing from Andy Muschietti is great, and I liked everything they did with the movie. And it's definitely, like I said, I love horror, and it's one of my favorite horror films. But it went further down the list because it didn't quite hold up as much. And sometimes horror films can be like that. When you know what's coming, it's not quite as scary and it's not quite as fun. But it is still an excellent movie that even if you're not that much of a horror fan, I didn't find it that scary at all. But I know it would probably be scary for people that aren't familiar with horror films. But it's a great movie. At number 17 is I, Tonya. I, Tonya is the first kind of prestige film on my list. And it fell back a little bit because, again, when I watched it repeatedly, it didn't hold up as much. But I still think I loved, it has the drama, it has all that stuff you want from a prestige film. But it also has a lot of comedy and a lot of, abstract comedy of these characters in, especially when have how the structure of the film where you have, the more modern, interviews, and then you have, the recreations of what happened before. There's so many great moments in it that it's really an entertaining movie. And you see a lot of the great performances, too. Margot Robbie was great as Tonya Harding. And I love that you got to see a different angle of the story of what, you've always heard before. And, I enjoyed it a lot. And number 16 is Coco. So the reason now the pop instead of the actual movie is because Disney apparently decided to stop selling 3D Blu-rays in America, but they're still selling them in the UK, and you can import them, but just some reason now, I guess, came out a little later and still hasn't arrived. But, Coco is definitely the best animated movie of the year. And I loved how it honored a different culture, so successfully and so faithfully, while still creating an excellent movie, and, one of the most emotional movies of the year. The songs were incredibly memorable and catchy, and the writing was just really well done. And I loved the animation of the underworld or whatever, the afterlife. It was so colorful and beautiful that it just, even in repeated viewings, it really is beautiful. It's really taken its place among the best of Pixar. And, it's one of my favorites of the year. And it just it fell back a little bit just because there are some twists and turns that, when you watch it again, they're, you know what's going to happen. It's not as great, not as impactful, but still an amazing movie. At number 15 is Spider-Man Homecoming. So this is the first superhero movie on the list, and the collaboration between Sony and Marvel, bringing Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is one movie that I've probably seen the most on the whole list. And I'm thinking it might be tied for a couple, but it does really hold up when watching it again. I loved how much it is about, really the first and greatest teenage superhero that we've ever had. So many times that they aren't, young, or when they're supposed to be young, like the first Spider-Man, the character playing does not look young at all. We would get a lot of great stuff with this. Tom Holland was great as Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and Michael Keaton was a great villain because it was the most Marvel Cinematic Universe film so far. It's because everything is kind of the reason that Michael Keaton became a villain is because of everything that happened before in the cinematic universe. Iron Man and just the first Avengers and even the second Avengers too, we get stuff from. And it really felt so ingrained with the rest of the cinematic universe that it was really impressive. Though I will say that this is probably one of the few films that recently they've had more different directors for the Marvel movies, and you can really feel the director's impact on the movies. And this one is just kind of, I don't know if, it has a director, John Watts, and he did well. I think he did Cop Car before this. But I didn't feel like it was one director's vision. I felt like it was kind of like a team's vision of the movie. But I mean, it still is a great vision. And it's one of my favorite movies of the year. I think the only reason that really kind of came down a little bit is because that I enjoy the other superhero movies more. And I think that when I compare it to like Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, I think those movies are still better, even though they're different. But, I think Spider-Man 1 was like the best superhero origin story ever. And Spider-Man 2 has so much to offer that this doesn't quite match this, but still, I love the movie and would definitely recommend it. At number 14 is Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. So Dunkirk was one of the biggest movies of the year, and it's probably the one movie that you had to see on the big screen. It's still really good seeing it at home, but there's something so impressive seeing it on as larger screens you can find and having that amazing sound and the score that is incredibly impactful. And it's emotional towards the end, and there's so many amazing moments in the movie. But I definitely think, when you watch it over, one thing you kind of notice more things about, how all the different plot lines interconnect. You see, some characters that show in the other, then you see them pop up at a different time. And it's more noticeable when you watch it again. But at the same time, it almost gets a little more annoying with how much it jumps around. I wish at a certain point, especially towards the end of the movie, at a certain point they kind of were all happening at the same time. Because even at the very end, there's still moments you see a burning boat, or you see a boat that's about to maybe be on fire, and it's and you see it again, you see then that actually happens. It's oh, so that was this boat. Okay, I get it. But it's almost a little too much. Christopher Nolan likes to do that, likes to do tricky things. It's almost a little too tricky. At a certain point, I would just like to have it be a movie instead of having the, with the weird timeline things. But at the same time, it's just one of the most impressive movies too, with the visuals, where you cannot tell what is, what is computer graphics and what is real. And that a lot of it is real. And you don't know how they did some of it, especially when they had those gigantic IMAX cameras. But yeah, it's definitely an excellent movie. And, I think it could be higher, but there's a lot of other great movies too. And number 13 is Baby Driver. So this is a movie that at one point in time, if I was making my list, it would have been in the top 5. And one of my favorite movies of the year. But I think that on repeated viewings, and so some of the stuff that happened with Kevin Spacey, it dropped down a bit. It's because I love the director Edgar Wright, and there's so many great moments in this with his directing that is on beat with the music, and it's the first time I watched it, even the second time I watched it, it was just so amazing. But then when you watch it after more than that, you get some of the stuff with the plot and the dialogue is a little too on the nose and a little simple. And I wish there was more time between Baby and the love interest, so that they show that that they're actually falling in love. And there's a lot of the driving the stunts are amazing, and everything about it is really good. It's just some of the things that kind of eke in on repeated viewings that I didn't notice the first time around. And number 12 is 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. So this is a movie that I actually liked a little less on my first viewing than I did on my second viewing. It's because in the first one, I wasn't sure what exactly it was going to be. And I didn't find the humor as funny. And I was more in the dark drama. But watching it again, I found it a lot more funny for some reason. Seeing it again, I embraced more of that dark comedy, along with all the drama and all the sadness and depression but it's there is still some questionable stuff though with Sam Rockwell's character. But I think he plays a lovable racist. It's kind of weird to say. And I think Frances McDormand and Woody Harrelson were really good in the role. I love the directing by Martin McDowell, and it can be a little bit of a challenging film, but I thought it was really rewarding. And I accepted more the end. Like, the first time around, I didn't like the ending at all. But watching it again, I understand that, you know, yeah, that's kind of like her revenge story is kind of like she's kind of lost that. Like, she's okay with it, but then at the same time, she kind of wants to do it. So then, that they're kind of say the end is we're going right in the veg and say that left aside along the way. That idea of, that maybe they'll take revenge on some guy, maybe they won't. Like, I think that it works because if they actually showed them doing it, then maybe that'd be an odd end to a movie. But like having it end like almost on a cliffhanger, actually I think really works for the movie. At number 11 is Logan. So Logan was really one of the most interesting and daring takes on a superhero story that we've seen, especially when it's like the third movie in this solo series, and it's also like the 7th, 8th movie that we've seen Logan in. We've seen Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and it could have been, I mean, like the first Wolverine movie Origins was shit. It was horrible. And the second one, just Wolverine, it had some amazing moments, but it kind of failed at the end. And Logan, again, I didn't love the ending as much as maybe I should. Because I think that, but I mean, it got the ending that it deserved, and I like what they did with the character. I like how that this is kind of like its own movie. It feels like it's more of in the same universe as the third X-Men movie. Before they did the rewrites in the Days of Future Past and stuff. Of course, they can't really do a real Old Man Logan from the comics, but they did a really interesting take on it. And Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, I love their relationship. I love when they brought in Daphne Keane as X-23. And I didn't love some of the stuff they did, like they changing her character from the comics. Because, the whole idea is that Wolverine can't be cloned. They tried it over and over again to try to clone him, and then they finally instead they did something to make it into a woman. I think they had someone that almost impregnated, that in vitro instead of just a full actual clone. So it's more like his daughter than a clone of him, and they actually transferred the powers. And I wish they did more, but in this one, X-23 means more that it's the 23rd mutant that they made. And I thought the young version of Logan was a little on the nose for him to be fighting, and I would have liked they did something different. But at the same time, it's kind of like a classic take on it, and it did offer a lot in the story, and I really loved it. It barely fell out of my top 10. It's so close to being put in, but I think some other movies edged it out for me. But still, it's an amazing movie. And number 10 is Get Out. So this is another movie that came out over a year ago. It had a lot of staying power, and it was very, it stayed in your mind after watching it. It stayed with you for a long time. And, I love that it got Jordan Peele. His first movie is so good. And I love that you introduced us to Daniel Kaluuya. Although I think he was in some of the stuff first, more nothing that I had really seen. And I love the idea of the social commentary horror film. That is just such an interesting take on it. And I hope that they do more with that, because there's so much horror, you can do a lot of different things with it that maybe you couldn't do in different genres of movies. And I mean, it holds up really well rewatching it too. Because even the first watch is still probably the best, because you really have no idea what's going on. You go in with something, I bet they're going to do something like that, and what they do is different but almost better. And so when you watch it again, you know what's going to happen, but it's still really enjoyable and really holds up. Definitely one of the best movies of the year, and it deserves to be in my top 10. At number 9 is The Big Sick. So The Big Sick is one of the funniest movies of the year, and also they have a lot of drama and a lot of emotion, and it's probably the best romantic comedy in years. Even though it's tough to label this movie, but I think you have to label it as kind of a romantic comedy. And it does some of the things that romantic comedy does, but like it's really so different. And I love, having, main characters that don't fit the role of most leading men and women. And you have a lot of diversity with the characters. And it's funny and it's emotional. And when they want to hit that emotion, they hit it really hard. And I loved Kumail Nanjiani was really good, and I think really the people that almost stole the show were the girls' parents, Holly Hunter and Ray Romano. I love the relationship they formed between them and Kumail, and there's a really great moments throughout the movie that even I still watching it like the third time, I still felt a lot of emotion. When they hit the emotional parts of the movie. And that's tough for a movie to do, and it does it really well. And number 8 is Patty Cakes. So Patty Cakes is probably the most indie film on this whole list. And it's the kind of film that I really sad that it didn't get more attention because it's such an amazing movie. And, it's directed by Jeremy Jasper. And it stars Danielle McDonald as Patty Cakes. And, it's a character that we don't normally see. She is an overweight woman. And, she is trying to be a rapper. And you see everyone kind of belittles her except for her, best friend. And then she has, alcoholic mother. But, that mother is also a really interesting character. But she had a dream and her dream kind of failed. And when you see, the daughter kind of has this slightly similar dream, but she almost berates her for it. And there's so many amazing moments, especially the music is really good. When watching the backstory for some of the stuff with the movie, that she really didn't do any rapping beforehand. They found her, and then they kind of taught her how to rap, and she does amazing. The writing for all the lyrics is really, really great, and especially the cinematography is amazing. It's gorgeous when she kind of breaks out into these daydreams, while she's listening to music or while she's thinking about what her future could be, and they're gorgeous. And there's some of the most beautiful scenes in the movie throughout the year. It's definitely it has a classic sort of rise of the star sort of thing. And, the story is some of the cliches they've done before, but I really like how they did that. All the characters are so different, and you see them some come up in they form a team, a group, and PB&J, and it's great. And I think I really hope that more people will find this film in the future, because I know that it didn't really do anything, but it is one of my favorite movies of the year, and I hope more people, can find it and watch it. And number 7 is Lady Bird. So Lady Bird was the first movie directed by Greta Gerwig, and it stars Saoirse Ronan, and it's a great coming-of-age story that I know other people have done it, but it's one of the best ones, especially with how it captures a year in her life. And this character, it's a lot different from other ones because she is not clearly defined what she is. She doesn't really kind of fit in any of the cliques, and that's you see her struggling with that. Trying to fit in maybe with the theater kids, and maybe fit in with the preppy kids, or fitting in she's trying to find her place. And while she finds her place, she hurts her best friend and her family, and she acts like she hates where she's from, but at the same time when she writes about it, when she show that how much she actually loves it. And there's a lot of great moments with her and her mom, played by Laurie Metcalf, and that you see the relationship is full of strife. And I don't know the exact relationship that a daughter has with a mother, because I'm not either of those. But I've heard people talk about how that a lot of times the relationship can be like that between a mother and a daughter, where they love each other, but there's a lot of tension. and that it portrays that incredibly well. And even though I don't really have that much in related to Lady Bird, I still felt that it did, and that's really impressive. And number 6 is Thor Ragnarok. Similar to Logan, it's amazing that the third movie in the series and like the dozenth movie and like overall could be better than the ones that came before. Like it does everything that Thor did, and it kind of recreates it under the guise of Taika Waititi. And I mean, it's a funny movie. It's delivers a lot of laughs and a lot of great action, and like the colors are amazing and really brings in like the original comic book, some of the crazy art from them, and it is just a gorgeous movie. And I mean, the characters are all so great. Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston's Loki, and Mark Ruffalo is I really like what they did with him and with this Hulk. I think Hulk has been hulked out for a while, and he's like more intelligent, so he's not just the beast that he's been so far. I really think that up to this point, the Hulk has been a little like he's just been the beast. I really like that they're changing his character a little bit, because that's not really quite the way you like it a lot of time in the comics. Cate Blanchett is one of the better Marvel villains, and that the Tessa Thompson is a great addition to a female hero as Valkyrie, and Jeff Goldblum, of course, is great as the Grand Master. And I mean, as a whole, it's just there's so much to love about this film that no matter how many times you watch it, it really holds up, and it's really an entertaining movie. And number 5 is The Shape of Water. Shape of Water is from Guillermo del Toro, one of my favorite directors. And it really has this different story that if you just heard about, that it would be like, what? It's a girl that falls in love with a fish. But it's so much more than that. Like, you see that there's a lot of stuff where, like, she almost seems like she's like a reverse mermaid. And you have this, like, god character, this, like, river god that comes in. And, like, he is learning. Like, he is smart, and they see him, he's being, like, tortured, but he's trying to, like, when he comes in, like, he's an animal, but he's not an animal. And there's so many great moments with that. And I love that, when you watch it repeated, like, a couple times, you can really see how much this movie was, like, a love story, like, to Guillermo del Toro's love for film. Like, it's not just the love story between the river god and Sally Hawkins. It's really about Guillermo del Toro's love of film. And just that I'm glad that it did so well in all the awards. I think it really deserved it. And it is a beautiful movie it really holds up too when you watch it again. At number 4 is Blade Runner 2049. When I first heard about Blade Runner 2049, I wasn't sure about, redoing like a masterpiece. But then when I saw Denis Villeneuve, I was in, because he's one of my favorite new directors. I'm really one of the best directors working right now, new directors. And he really embraces the original and makes a movie that could fit in with it, but at the same time is its own movie. I loved Ryan Gosling as the main character, and I liked when they brought in Harrison Ford. They didn't overuse him. Like, they used him just enough. And I liked, the character interactions between them. And I love, the different ideas with, also bringing in, like, artificial intelligence along with the, the humans and the skin jobs or whatever. There's a lot of different things that they can say about it. And there's so many amazing moments in this movie. I will say that watching it, like, multiple times, I still loved it. But at the same time, it's a long movie. It's not like an easy watch, it's, and that's why it's not my number 1 movie. Like, it drops a little bit just because, you really have to sit down and you have to put all your attention on it, and like to really enjoy it, you have to be all in. And like, it's still, when you do that, it's an amazing movie. But I think that it's just it asks a lot from the viewer. And I think the movie deserves that, but definitely is a gorgeous movie, and I love that they spent so much money on it, making such an amazing film. And it's too bad that it didn't make as much money as it should have, but I can understand why. At number 3 is The Last Jedi. So at one point, Star Wars 8, The Last Jedi, probably would have been my number 1 movie, but I think that with repeated viewings, I definitely started to notice more that the critiques that other people had with it. Because on my first viewing, I think this is the best movie-going experience I've had in a while. Like, I was so, like, absorbed by this film that, like, I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea what was coming next. And I had no idea of, like, who would live, who would die, what they were going to do. And I loved that. But, when watching it again and knowing that certain plot lines, nothing is going to come from them, kind of got a little annoying. And I understand why they did, but saying like the failure is like the greatest teacher, like, and as the movie, the whole battle is kind of like failure is, that's one of the theme of the movie. And it's so different because, that is, I love that, The Force Awakens, a lot of fans hate it because it's too much like the original movies. And now this one, they hate it because it's too different. And it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. But, I really liked what they did. And I still, again, it's my third favorite movie of the year. But I can definitely recognize some of its faults now. But when I first saw it, I didn't really understand why people didn't like it. But the more times you watch it, the more times you do notice some of the things. But at the same time, it's just such a good movie. And it's one of my favorite movies of the year. But, again, I will say that at first I was saying it might be my favorite Star Wars movie ever, but now I think it fell back to probably third. Like the Empire Strikes Back and The New Hope are ahead of it. But I think I still put this probably in front of Force Awakens and in front of The Return of the Jedi. But they're all great movies, and I really look forward to what comes next. You see that, like, so usually the second story in a trilogy has so much to do to set up the next one. And I really don't know what they're going to do for the finale of the trilogy. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. At number 2 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So some people might be surprised by how high Guardians of the Galaxy is, but I love these movies. And like the first one, my favorite movie of that year, and this one isn't quite as good as the first one, but still so much to offer. It's probably my most watched movie from last year, and I loved every moment of it. Like, I loved everything they did, like even with his dad, Chris Pratt's dad, Kurt Russell as the Planet Ego. Like, there's so much great stuff with it. Although I do understand some of the critiques that at the end, when he becomes like this swirly monster thing, that it loses some of the impact. But there's so much about it that I love. It's so funny, but also really heartfelt, and some great action and amazing visuals. It's definitely one of the most beautiful movies of the year, and it has so much to offer. And like, for me, it was just one of my favorite movies of the year, and it just barely fell down from number 1. And then I wasn't sure, like, when I had it, I put it lower, but I was fighting with Star Wars and Blade Runner. When I watched it again, and it held up so well, even when I watched it over and over again, like, I wouldn't mind watching it again, like, right now. Like, that's how good it was for me. And, I loved it. So finally, at number 1, my favorite movie of 2017 is Wind River. So this was the director Tyler Sheridan's first movie, and it's kind of like the third movie of a trilogy of movies that he had written. And it's such an impactful movie that, when I first watched it, like, it was so strong and so, it's so much emotion, so much like heart and trauma, and this like anxiety, and this like, and I wasn't sure if I would like it. I've repeated viewings, but for some reason, even though it was not an easy movie to watch at times, I really liked it. And when I watched it over and over again, like, it held up really well. And there's just so many amazing moments where they have this character, Jeremy Renner, and he puts on a great kind of role where it's not over the top, like it's subdued, but you can feel his emotion, that like the depression that he's in, and seeing that his daughter is killed, and his now the murder that starts the movie is his best friend's daughter, and that he has to help Elizabeth Olsen as the fish out of water FBI agent. You try to find out what happened to this girl that made her run 5 miles, in the snow and bare feet before her lungs burst. And this, like, when stuff starts happening towards the end, like every time, like it was so good that the first time, even watching it over and over again, it's so that moment you get the anxiety, the tension of what's gonna happen next, and you see like it does it. I mean, so well. I look forward to what Taylor Sheridan does next, and I think it's one of the best like cuts in a movie I've ever seen, where like you see like she's Elizabeth Olsen is knocking on the door, and you think there's a lot of tension of what's going to happen. You don't know like if it's just going to be an interview or what's going to happen. And then you get this cut to where like on the other side of the door opens, and you see what happened before the start of the movie. Like you see a flashback of what happened, and I love how it's worked because like you're still in that other scene, like you're still in the tension of the other scene, but then when you see what horrifically happens to start the movie, like the more you know about it, the more you think, oh my God, what's going to happen in the other scene now? You know what they're getting into. And it's just, like, even thinking about it, it kind of like sends shivers down my spine, that moment. And it's really one of the best moments in films from 2017. And it's too bad that this movie didn't really see any recognition from, different awards. But I think it deserved it. And it's definitely, but it got my best movie of the year. Not that I have anything to give it, but I loved it. So thanks for watching. That's my definitive list of my top 20 movies of 2017. Those are my favorites. And I think some of them are the best. Like Wind River, I think I would still say is also the best movie of 2017. And maybe some of the other top 4, I may not say were the best movies, but they're definitely my favorite movies. And, thanks for watching. You can check out my other video playlists on my head or subscribe to me over here. Thanks.